1 and 2, Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels, round 2, Monday night in primetime. That's one storyline, but it may not be the biggest. Tyrique Stevenson makes his return nearly a year after the Hail Mary loss and takes questions about the infamous play. Can the Bears defense step up against the Commanders' top rushing offense? Ben Johnson says they'll be able to unlock some things with Kyler Gordon making his season debut. We discuss it all this week on Bears Blitz. Hello, everyone, and welcome into Bears Blitz, brought to you by IGS Energy. I'm Cassie Carlson alongside Luke Canellis and Anthony Herron. We are back from the bye, well rested, and we are getting straight into primetime Monday night in Washington. The Bears don't really want to call this a revenge game, but there are plenty of storylines because of what happened last year and the quarterbacks. A lot to talk about heading into this one on Monday.
Fourth year in a row, these two teams are getting together. Caleb against Jayden, battle number 2. But I look at this game as an opportunity for the Bears to grow. And I read something in one of the local newspapers, so I want to make sure I give credit to that writer. You know, they touched on how the 85 Bears needed to get by the 49ers and the Redskins to become a Super Bowl team. Or the Michael Jordan Bulls, all right, needed to get by the Bad Boy, Pistons, Lambert, Rodman. To get to that championship level, even the 2016 Cubs. I think that this is an opportunity, instead of looking at it, Cassie, as a revenge game, as an opportunity to show that we are growing, coming off the painful loss that this team suffered a year ago.
A measuring stick, right, against one of the better teams in football, one of the squads that we know is going to be in the mix, you know, and every time, whether it's a divisional game or a game with a top-flight quarterback or against a team who was in the playoffs last year, we're certainly all going to gauge it on whether or not the Bears are able to measure up against that opponent. We even did it in the preseason when they played against the Buffalo Bills. So there's no doubt that's going to be the case here. And I'm confident that internally the Bears are viewing this matchup not only as it relates to specifically how that one finished last season, but because they're playing one of the better teams in football.
Yeah, Caleb Williams said the loss last year actually does still sting because he doesn't want to lose any game that he's playing, but it was also a homecoming for him. A lot of his former teammates were there, some former coaches, and the reason he doesn't want to call this one a revenge game is because it's a totally different team with a different coach. Now, he and Jayden Daniels will be tied together for their entire careers after going 1 and 2, and of course, Daniels winning Offensive Rookie of the Year, making for what's expected to be one of the best QB draft classes in recent memory.
What do you think your draft class of quarterbacks is going to be known for at the end of the day?
Pretty badass class, right?
Yeah.
6 QBs going within first round and first 12. Yeah, so it's a pretty good draft class.
Caleb obviously felt highly about him, you know, or the reason why I wanted to come here, you know, and I haven't been disappointed with him whatsoever. He continues to get better. Jayden's extremely accurate thrower of the football, something that I think is overlooked when you look at him because he is so dynamic with his legs.
And they're both going to be talking about each other for a long time in the future.
Right.
I have to imagine that whether they want to say it or not, this game means a lot to both of them because of the way that they're talked about and compared to each other.
I think this is a huge game for Caleb Williams, and he can tell you what he wants about it not being an issue after what happened a year ago. Caleb Williams put the Bears in position to win that football game last year. He brought them back. That was one of those games where if they won because of Caleb Williams. And then he had to listen all year about the guy who was drafted behind him, about how he was historically great last year, winning the NFC's Offensive Player of the Year. This is a big opportunity for Caleb. He is already making strides, and he is showing that he is closing the gap on Jayden Daniels and the other 4 quarterbacks that were drafted ahead of the, 12th selection in the draft back in 2024. I think it's huge for Caleb.
And what fascinates me as well is when you think about Jayden Daniels, this will also be the second season in a row where he's a little banged up coming into the game. That was the case for him last year. It's the case again this season where he was able to return to the lineup. It's going to be his second game back. But he's not necessarily at full health And a fully healthy version of Jayden Daniels gives them the best opportunity for success and production on that side of the football, and especially against the Bears defense that we're really hopeful will continue to grow throughout the season here. But this comparison between the two of them, I talked to each of you in our pre-draft coverage about Jayden Daniels being a guy who just had more time on task than Caleb, had been through more rocky roads, multiple programs, a variety of offensive systems that he'd been in. And so there'd be more of those sort of, the mundane of quarterback, the consistency and mechanics, that he'd be further along in his development. But now it does seem like we're seeing Caleb Williams in a system with a coach who's really harnessing his talents and putting him in a position to continue to grow.
But I think that's the most important note of Caleb Williams in year 2, because he talked this week about being in the right situation. And we knew then after the fact that Jayden Daniels was drafted into a better situation, being paired with Cliff Kingsbury. And Caleb Williams is a comparison of Baker Mayfield, someone who wasn't drafted into a great situation. Now look what he's doing down in Tampa. He's balling out, but he said he's still the same quarterback. He just has the right coach and support system around him. And Caleb Williams feels like he finally has that with Ben Johnson. I want to go back to the Vegas win. They all called it a turning point in their season, saying a win like that, close late in the fourth quarter, can carry over into the rest of the season. But looking at the run game, there's a lot of questions of why this one area of the offense hasn't taken off yet. And Ben Johnson didn't want to place the blame on the running backs. He said he feels like he can't really evaluate any of them right now because it's all 11 as one. What's the quickest fix to the run game?
Well, I think he's blaming actually himself. He's questioned some of the play calling that he's had. He's also talked about, and I had a chance to chat with Tom Thayer, who knows a little bit about run blocking, considering the fact that he blocked for the greatest of all time, Walter Payton. And Tom told me last Sunday that it takes an offensive line a little time to gel, build cohesion, chemistry up front, so they can open those holes for guys like DeAndre Swift. Ben Johnson comes from a running game in Detroit, guys, that was 11th in 2022 in running the football, then 5th in 2023, and 6th in the NFL last season in running the football. It's really important to Ben Johnson to run the football effectively in his offense, or it doesn't work. So I am sure this was something that he and his coaching staff worked hard on during the bye week.
And it's a Commanders defense that's coming off of one of their better efforts of the season. And overall, they've been a little bit up and down, but they've been fairly consistent with their ability to stop the run. And the Bears have been pretty consistent in the struggles that they've had on the ground. And if we're going to see, some adjustment with the personnel up front on the offensive line, maybe that's a part of it. But I do believe just having a group together that's able to have game after game, drive after drive, snap after snap, lining up across from each other, and then trusting what they see. That opposing defensive front where you can just run off the ball and look to move people, that ends up making a big difference. And so I do believe that, if they feel like they're getting their best 5 on the field, hopefully there'll be some consistency in that, because the better they run the football, the better their young quarterback can perform.
Well, and they obviously have an issue right now with penalties on offense. Ben Johnson said they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're playing behind the sticks. But other than that, how do you feel like the passing game has developed so far?
Well, I think the passing game, when it comes to, giving Caleb Williams time, I think it's actually given him plenty of passing protection. And he's learned more. I think each game has shown us that he feels more and more comfortable running this offense, which means he doesn't, suddenly once he feels the passing protection, the protection up front breaks down, he doesn't feel like he has to tuck it and run. He can look for that third, fourth option. Yeah. And I'll give you this number, Big A. DeAndre Swift has 13 catches out of the backfield. To me, that's a quarterback who is going through his reads and says, you know what, he's my safety valve. I'm going to get it to Swift.
Love seeing that from Caleb, and the way that the pass protection is improving is partly because Caleb himself is improving with the rhythm and timing that he gets the ball out of his hands.
We're going to have to see how the offensive line looks if Theo Benedict gets the start at left tackle, and then the status of Darnell Wright up in the air with his injury. So it could be Ozzie Trapillo making his first start in prime time.
Like I told KB this too. I definitely appreciate that, because I would have never changed. I had success with my mindset and what I was doing at that time. And I feel like, with that situation, it's just preparing me to grow and to mature and to be able to accept whatever situation that comes with this game and be able to stand on 10 and stand and look these men in the face when things don't go my way.
Tyrique Stevenson stood at his locker for about 5 minutes Wednesday after practice and faced questions about his role in last year's Hail Mary loss in Washington. He called it harsh to have that attached to his name and that he's going to have to explain that to his son one day. But I like the way that he was looking forward, and he said that if that never happened, he would be the same player today that he was at that point last year. So he's using it as growth for him, and honestly, shout out to him for taking the questions. Obviously a tough moment for him.
I want to jump in and talk about Tyrique Stevenson for a second, because you and I chatted about Tyrique on CST Thursday, and I thought it was very interesting that he let us into his life about how he feels telling his son what he did, because his son at some point as he gets older, he's going to have to explain what happened in that football game. Think about what Tyrique Stevenson has been through as a young man, and he is still relatively young in the NFL. And nobody has been publicly humiliated or laughed at more than Tyrique Stevenson after what happened in D.C. last year. You look at what he has been through as a young man growing up in Miami, all right? Had no father, stepfather left the family when he was in middle school. He and his mom were left to raise his twin sister and his 3 young sisters. He is growing up as a man in front of us, wearing a Chicago Bears uniform, playing as an NFL player. We all grew up and made mistakes in life. How we respond to those mistakes tell us what kind of man we're going to be. I think he's going to be a better man, and for that, a better football player down the line.
The physicality and the feisty nature that he sort of attacks the game with, that's always been a part of the DNA of Tyrique Stevenson. But we're seeing now, after the first couple of games of this season, a guy who's grown into the role of truly being a #1 caliber corner. Now, to be able to perform with consistency in that regard is a struggle that every professional athlete tries to go through. That's the most difficult thing about having success at this level of the sport. Can you do it week in and week out? But he came into the league as a physical guy, but we're seeing now the craft and the study habits that are necessary to really take the next step as a football player, as a competitor, as a technician at corner, and with no Jalen Johnson in the lineup. Now we're seeing a Bears defense that's beginning to get to the point where they can count on Tyrique Stevenson, and it was kind of fascinating to have the bye week leading into this game to allow him to sort of take a deep breath, exhale a little bit, and tell his story about the growth that he's tried to go through personally since that moment that the entire world seemingly got to witness.
He said he wanted to play last week because he's coming off of 2 great games, his best game of his career against the Raiders, where he had that incredible interception and back-to-back games with the fumble recovery. So he's on the right track, and I think a lot of it, this Bears coaching staff has been trying to get to him of it's how you prepare, and it's what you do throughout the week that's going to set you up for Sundays, and I think that's starting to click for him.
And no one has more at stake than Tyrique Stevenson right now. Guys, he can get a new contract after this season. So if he continues to improve and play well, instead of being a guy who may make $2 million a season with a new contract, he could go to the highest bidder at over $10 million a season at the cornerback position.
He wants to prove he's a CB1. We got to talk about this matchup, which will be the Commanders' top-ranked run game against the Bears' league worst run defense. They're hopefully getting back some reinforcements, which is going to be helpful, but they are making all these running backs look like Pro Bowlers. I mean, Ashton Genty looked like he could be Rookie of the Year after what happened in Vegas, and now they got Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, who's averaging a league-high 6.6 yards per carry. What can they do to shore it up quickly?
I'm worried. I'm worried because Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, is a 7th rounder? Does this mean Kyle Monangai may get more carries in this football game?
Fans would love that.
Fellow 7th rounder. Bears defense is going to get, listen, you have the talent that you have. I'm hoping with the return of Kyler Gordon and hopefully TJ Edwards, it's a better run defense because both guys, I mean, I get it. Anytime your nickelback's got to step up and come up with big-time tackles to stop the opposition's run game, that could be an issue. I'm happy TJ Edwards is back.
Very happy TJ Edwards is back. And, I mean, Noah Sewell performed well, admirably as a linebacker in his stead also. But in the end, this is a Bears defense that's got to figure out how not only those moments come where you have to hit blocks, but then when there are those times that Dennis Allen calls them into some movement to really pierce the line of scrimmage, to get into the backfield and force running backs to belly, force guys to bounce. We're seeing running backs too comfortable advancing on the line of scrimmage. And so at times, even if you're not making the play as a front 7 defender, just go ahead and bring force into the backfield, forcing the offensive line, forcing the ball carriers to have to do something that they're not quite prepared for. I think right now, seeing guys playing and try to defend the run with a bit of caution, worried about making mistakes.
Is this Bears defense well equipped to face Jayden Daniels, who's also a threat with his legs?
They've given up a lot of rushing yards to quarterbacks as well, to your point, right, Cass? And it's not an easy thing to do, to transition from being a run defender against the running back to quarterbacks who might be in scramble mode. And Jayden Daniels, because he is a little bit banged up with that knee, I'll be really curious to watch how Washington goes about calling their offense, if they do call some QB run and perhaps put him in harm's way.
Don't forget, Ben Johnson also mentioned that he doesn't get enough credit for his accuracy as a thrower, something to keep an eye on.
Well, we all witnessed that last year as well.
Thanks for the remembrance.
Ian Rappaport reported on Thursday that Terry McLaurin is, quote, not looking good for the Monday night game. So the Bears could potentially also make him a little bit one-dimensional. Welcome back. Your player to watch is brought to you by IGS Energy. Lou's pick this week.
I'll tell you what, I am so happy to see TJ Edwards back out there and hopefully healthy. He's played only 30 snaps this season. Guys, he's a tackling machine, all right? 2 years ago, led the Bears in tackles. Last year, I believe he was second in tackles. They need him to help stop the run game of the opposition, especially with a guy who's got happy feet out there like Jayden Daniels.
And he's one of their intensity leaders as well, and that matters, especially on the national stage. We'll see the Bears on.
Let's hope the Bears defense can continue creating some turnovers and takeaways. Helps them big time. That is it for this week's edition of Bears Blitz. We'll see you for a special Bears Game Day Live Monday night at 5:30 leading up to Bears Commanders. See you then.